Hello everyone and welcome to my channel Y&R Trends. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The day started innocuously enough at the Newman Ranch, with the sun streaming through the grand windows and a gentle breeze stirring the curtains, but within moments the calm was shattered by an eruption of rage that no one could have predicted, and it all began when Sally, her face flushed with a mix of fear and fury, stormed into the living room where Jill sat, casually sipping her tea, completely unaware that the simmering tension between them had reached a boiling point, and before anyone could even gasp or intervene, Sally's fist shot forward with shocking precision, connecting with Jill's jaw in a resounding punch that echoed across the ornate walls, sending the older woman reeling backward, teacup clattering to the floor, porcelain shattering into irreparable pieces as the sharp sound mirrored the abrupt destruction of the fragile illusion of civility that had always governed their interactions. And as Jill staggered, instinctively raising her hands to defend herself, her eyes wide with disbelief and the flush of indignation rising to her cheeks, Sally stood over her, chest heaving, eyes wild, a storm of emotion swirling in her gaze, a cocktail of anger, betrayal and desperation, because this was not merely a spur-of-the-moment act of violence, it was the culmination of weeks, no months, of secrets, manipulations, and lies that had been quietly poisoning every corner of Genoa City. And at that precise moment, the truth that had been buried so deep, so carefully hidden under layers of charm, cunning and polite smiles, began to claw its way to the surface, and Billy, who had been standing in the hallway moments before, oblivious to the impending confrontation, finally arrived just in time to witness the aftermath of the punch, his eyes widening in horror as he processed what had just happened, the sound of Jill's stagger and Sally's harsh breathing etching themselves into his memory. And as he rushed forward, his heart pounding, he couldn't ignore the unmistakable signs of fear and agitation that radiated from Sally, signs that he had never seen before, signs that hinted at something darker lurking beneath the surface, something that went beyond mere anger at a perceived slight, something that spoke to a hidden world of deceit, danger, and betrayal that no one in Genoa City could have anticipated. And in that split second, everything changed for Billy, because he had always believed he knew the people around him, had always assumed that he understood the limits of their actions, the depths of their hearts, but as he looked into Sally's eyes, searching for the familiar spark of mischief or charm, he saw instead a shadow of terror and determination, and it was in that shadow that the terrifying secret revealed itself, the secret that had remained buried like a ticking time bomb, waiting for the precise moment to explode, a secret that involved Jill's past dealings with a powerful figure whose influence extended far beyond the city. A secret tied to threats, blackmail, and hidden alliances that could destroy careers, reputations, and lives in an instant. And as Billy's mind raced to comprehend the implications, his pulse quickened, the room seeming to shrink around him as the walls of deception closed in, suffocating, oppressive, and he realized, with a chilling certainty, that everything he had believed about Sally, about Jill, about even himself, was about to be turned upside down because the punch was not the beginning but the catalyst, the trigger that unleashed a chain reaction of revelations, confrontations, and betrayals, and as he glanced from Sally to Jill, from the broken teacup to the shards of unspoken truth scattered around the room, he understood that this moment was only the beginning of a saga that would consume the lives of everyone involved, forcing alliances to fracture, secrets to surface, and hearts to shatter. And while Jill struggled to regain her composure, her dignified exterior cracking under the assault, Sally's hands trembling as the adrenaline surged through her, Billy's gaze hardened with resolve, the realization that he could no longer stand on the sidelines, that he must confront the web of lies and corruption head-on, and in that instant, the full weight of the secret bore down upon him, a secret that implicated not just Jill or Sally but extended into the very fabric of the city's elite, reaching into boardrooms, private estates, and the darkest corners of personal ambition. And as he pieced together the fragments of information, the stolen documents, the hushed conversations, the subtle threats, and the hidden alliances, Billy felt a chill crawl down his spine, a mixture of fear and determination mingling in equal measure, because he knew that exposing the truth would come at a cost that might fracture relationships, ignite rivalries, and unleash consequences that no one could control. And yet, despite the looming danger, he also knew that the truth could no longer remain hidden, that the city, the people he loved, and the integrity he valued demanded action, and so with a deep, steadying breath, he stepped forward, placing himself between the two women, not just as a mediator but as a protector, a seeker of justice, his mind a whirlwind of strategy and emotion, and as he began to speak, his voice firm yet tinged with the weight of revelation, he felt the tremor of change ripple through the room. Change that signaled the end of facades and the beginning of reckoning, a reckoning that would expose the vulnerabilities, the ambitions, and the darkest secrets of Genoa City's most powerful and complicated residents. And in that long, tense moment, as eyes met eyes, and hearts pounded with anticipation and fear, it became painfully clear that Sally's punch was not just an act of violence, but a clarion call to confront the tangled web of deceit, a web that Billy was now determined to unravel. Piece by piece, no matter the cost, no matter the danger, because the truth once revealed could never be concealed again, and as he processed the depth of the secret, its implications, its potential for devastation, and its power to rewrite every relationship and every alliance he had ever trusted, he knew that the journey ahead would test every ounce of his courage, resilience, and loyalty, and yet, amidst the chaos, the shattered teacups, the trembling hands, and the whispered threats, there was a glimmer of hope, a fragile promise that truth, no matter how terrifying, could ultimately lead to redemption, justice, and perhaps even a renewed sense of connection among those who survived the storm. And with that fragile hope burning in his chest, Billy took the first step into a future that none of them could have predicted, a future shaped by a punch, a secret, and the unwavering determination to confront the darkness and reclaim the light in a city where nothing is ever as it seems, and where every revelation brings with it the potential for both ruin and redemption, a city where the line between friend and foe is blurred, where love and betrayal coexist in a delicate, often explosive balance, and where one act, one punch, one decision, one discovery, can change everything forever. And as the echoes of that fateful moment reverberated through the halls, Billy's mind raced with questions, strategies, and possibilities, knowing that the true test had only just begun and that the path to uncovering the full truth would be fraught with danger, deception, and heartbreak, but also perhaps with courage, clarity, and the chance to finally bring justice to those who had been wronged. As Sally's eyes met his with a mixture of relief and fear, Jill's anger simmered beneath the surface, and the city itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see how the next chapter in this saga of secrets, betrayals, and revelations would unfold. As Billy's gaze locked with Sally's, he could see the tremor of desperation that ran through her, a desperation that hinted at layers of deception, manipulation, and danger he had only begun to glimpse. And while Jill slowly regained her footing, brushing strands of hair from her face with trembling hands, her eyes still blazing with the shock and indignation of being struck, Billy's mind raced, trying to connect the dots, realizing that the punch was a symptom, not a cause, a violent symptom, of an even deeper rot within the seemingly pristine walls of the Newman and Abbott empires. And in that instant, a rush of memories, overheard conversations, subtle threats, and fleeting glances he had dismissed before now coalesced into a terrifying clarity. Sally had been hiding something so dangerous, so shocking, that even Jill, wily, calculating, experienced Jill, was unaware of the full scope. And as he stepped closer, trying to calm the two women while simultaneously processing the implications, he noticed the slight hesitation in Jill's posture, the way her hands clenched and unclenched as if bracing for more. And it struck him that Jill herself might be entangled in this web, that the lines between villain and victim, aggressor and target, were far more blurred than anyone had realized, and this revelation sent a shiver down his spine, because it meant that the power dynamics he had trusted, the alliances he thought were stable, were in fact perilously fragile. And just as he began to formulate a plan, the sound of a car door slamming outside made him flinch, drawing his attention momentarily away from the women in front of him. And in that split second, a shadow passed across the window, a figure watching, waiting, calculating, and Billy's heart sank, because he understood immediately that the confrontation he had just witnessed was not isolated, that someone, somewhere, had orchestrated it, or at least predicted it, and the thought that he, too, might have been manipulated, that every move he had made in the past weeks could have been anticipated and used against him, made his stomach churn with a mix of fear, anger, and determination. And while Sally's breathing remained heavy, ragged with adrenaline, her eyes darting around the room, alert to threats invisible to anyone else, Jill's sharp intake of breath signaled that she, too, had sensed it, that the walls were closing in, that the game had changed, and suddenly the tea room, the shattered porcelain, the tense silence, All of it became a stage for a far more sinister drama that stretched beyond the confines of this house, beyond the personal rivalries, reaching into the hidden corridors of power where secrets were currency and betrayal was inevitable. And as Billy's mind worked feverishly to anticipate what might come next, he realized that uncovering the truth would require more than confrontation or casual questioning. It would demand cunning, patience, and courage he wasn't sure he could muster, yet. Somehow, he knew he had no choice because if he failed, the consequences would be catastrophic, not just for him or Sally or Jill, but for every innocent caught in the crossfire of this escalating war of secrets, lies, and dangerous ambitions, and in that realization, a plan began to form, tentative at first like a fragile blueprint against a storm, but growing in clarity as he weighed his options. He needed allies, information, leverage, and timing because in Genoa City, one misstep could spell ruin, and one revelation could ignite chaos that would ripple through the lives of everyone he cared about. And speaking of allies, the thought of Victoria, his sister, flashed through his mind, sharp and immediate, her own involvement in past intrigues making her both a potential threat and a crucial source of insight. And he considered the ways he could approach her without alerting Jill or Sally, without tipping off anyone who might be watching, because now he understood that observation was constant, that every move could be noted and exploited, and he realized that to truly confront the secret Sally was hiding, he would have to play a high-stakes game, balancing truth and deception, emotion and strategy, courage and caution, all at once. And as he mapped out this delicate balance in his mind, Sally suddenly spoke, her voice low, tense, and almost trembling, revealing, almost inadvertently, a fragment of the truth that made his pulse quicken, because in her words lurked the first glimmer of the secret he had long suspected but never confirmed, a secret tied not only to Jill but to a network of hidden dealings, backdoor agreements, and alliances that could topple careers and reputations with ruthless efficiency. And as he absorbed this, his mind whirred with implications. The secret involved illegal transactions, clandestine partnerships, and hidden motives that had infiltrated the highest echelons of the business world in Genoa City. And the fact that Sally, usually so cunning and playful, had resorted to physical violence, indicated the stakes were far higher than anyone had imagined. And in that moment, Billy realized that he was now the keeper of knowledge that could either protect or destroy everyone he knew, and that realization weighed heavily on him, tightening around his chest like a vice, demanding that he act, think, and move with precision, because hesitation could cost more than just comfort or pride. It could cost lives, and he could already see the signs of fracture among the key players. Jill's composure, normally unshakable, was cracking, Sally's fear was mingled with determination, and the city outside seemed to pulse with an ominous energy, as if it knew that a storm was coming, and that the residents of Genoa City, from the most powerful CEOs to the quietest bystanders, would soon be swept into a maelstrom of scandal, confrontation, and revelation that would change the landscape forever. And then, as if to underscore the gravity of the moment, the doorbell rang, sharp and insistent, slicing through the tense air, and Billy's eyes narrowed, realizing that whoever had arrived could either be an ally or an agent of chaos, someone who might accelerate the exposure of the secret or complicate the delicate web of interactions he was trying to navigate. And as he approached the door, every muscle in his body tensed, alert to danger, aware that the next moments could trigger events that would cascade through the lives of every resident of Genoa City. And when he opened it, the sight that met him was both shocking and telling, because standing there in the crisp daylight was someone he had trusted, someone whose involvement in past intrigues had always been shrouded in ambiguity, someone whose motives were now as opaque and potentially deadly as the secret he was about to confront. And in that instant, Billy understood that the punch, the revelation, and the arrival of this person were not isolated incidents but interconnected events, a carefully orchestrated sequence designed to force exposure, to compel confrontation, and to test the limits of loyalty, courage, and cunning among everyone involved. And as the tension mounted, he felt the weight of responsibility settle heavily on his shoulders, knowing that he had to navigate the treacherous waters ahead with care, precision, and perhaps a touch of deception, because in Genoa City, truth was rarely simple, loyalty was conditional, and survival often depended on one's ability to anticipate, manipulate, and adapt. And as he glanced back at Sally and Jill, seeing the fear, anger, and vulnerability etched into their faces, he realized that the path ahead would be fraught with emotional turbulence as well as strategic challenges, requiring him to manage not just the external dangers of exposure and betrayal, but the internal conflicts, insecurities, and shifting allegiances of the people closest to him, and he knew that only by maintaining clarity of thought, calm under pressure, and unwavering focus on the ultimate goal, the full revelation and neutralization of the secret threatening them all, could he hope to navigate the coming storm, a storm that would test the limits of trust, resilience, and moral courage in ways that no one in Genoa City had ever experienced before. And as the moment stretched, pregnant with tension, suspense, and the unspoken awareness that everything was about to change, Billy made a silent vow to uncover the full truth, protect the innocent, and confront the guilty, no matter the personal cost, because in the intricate, dangerous, and often ruthless world of Genoa City, courage, clarity, and integrity were the only shields against the chaos. And as he prepared to step into the maelstrom of revelation, confrontation, and retribution, he felt a surge of resolve, the first glimmer of hope that even amidst deceit, betrayal, and violence, justice could prevail. Secrets could be exposed, and the fragile balance of power, trust, and morality could be restored, albeit forever altered by the events set in motion by a single decisive punch, a terrifying secret, and the unwavering determination of one man to confront the darkness and reclaim the truth for himself, for Sally, for Jill, and for all who would be swept up in the consequences of the revelations to come. As Billy stood there, heart pounding, trying to maintain composure while every instinct screamed danger, he felt the weight of the moment settle on him like a physical force, the kind that pressed down on the chest and made even the simplest decisions feel monumental, because he now realized that the punch, the secret, and the stranger at the door were all threads in a vast, intricate web, a web that had been woven silently behind the gilded walls of Genoa City, and that every movement he made, every word he uttered, could trigger a cascade of consequences far beyond anything he had anticipated. And as the seconds stretched, filled with tense anticipation, his mind raced through every interaction he had witnessed, every conversation he had overheard, every subtle gesture that now seemed pregnant with hidden meaning, and suddenly, the shattered teacup on the floor, the trembling of Sally's hands, the flush of anger and shock on Jill's face, all of it crystallized into a terrifying clarity. They were all pawns in a game far larger than any of them had realized, a game in which power, influence, and survival were the stakes, and deception was both weapon and shield. And as Billy processed this, a quiet, almost imperceptible sound from the hallway drew his attention, a soft creak, a faint footstep that did not belong, a presence that had been unnoticed until now, and his pulse leapt in response, because in Genoa City, silence could be deadly, and shadows often concealed more than they revealed, and as he glanced toward the hall, his mind immediately catalogued potential threats, allies, and double agents, people who might have been observing, recording, and exploiting every nuance of the confrontation that had just unfolded, and with a sudden jolt of realization, he understood that the terrifying secret Sally had been trying to protect, the secret that had provoked her to violence, was not just about Jill or the Newman family but extended into hidden dealings that involved some of the city's most powerful and dangerous figures who would stop at nothing to ensure that the truth remained buried. And as this sank in, Billy felt the weight of responsibility tighten like a vice around him, the knowledge that exposing the secret would ignite chaos, that revealing the hidden truths would trigger confrontations, betrayals, and perhaps even threats to life itself. And yet, amidst the fear, a fierce determination surged within him, because he knew that ignoring the truth, remaining passive, or allowing deception to continue unchallenged was not an option, and he would be complicit if he failed, complicit in the destruction of innocence and trust. And as his mind swirled with strategies, potential outcomes, and the terrifying power of the secret, he realized that he would need to move carefully, to gather information, to discern friend from foe, because anyone could be working against him, anyone could be a part of the network of lies and manipulation that had created this volatile moment. And as he glanced at Sally, whose eyes now glimmered with both fear and resolve, he understood that she was both a victim and a key to unlocking the truth, and that her actions, desperate and violent as they had been, were a cry for help, a signal that the stakes were higher than he had imagined. And as Jill recovered her posture, her eyes narrowing, calculating, he sensed the subtle shift in power, the delicate recalibration of control, and he realized that the confrontation had changed everything. Alliances were broken, trust was fragile, and every subsequent move would carry consequences far more significant than anyone in the room could yet comprehend. And as he processed the depth of the danger, the full implications of the secret, and the precariousness of their positions, He knew one thing with absolute certainty: nothing in Genoa City would ever be the same again. Not after Sally's punch, not after the revelation that was quietly emerging, not after the eyes outside the window watching, waiting, and perhaps manipulating. And as he took a slow, steadying breath, preparing to take the first steps toward uncovering the full truth, Billy felt a surge of clarity and resolve, a conviction that despite fear, uncertainty, and the chaos that would inevitably follow, he would face the coming storm, confront the hidden dangers, and ensure that the terrifying secret would finally see the light, no matter the personal cost, no matter the heartache. And as the room held its collective breath, poised on the edge of revelation and disaster, Billy understood that this was only the beginning, the first chapter in a saga that would redefine relationships, loyalties, and power in Genoa City forever.